lawn and played the bagpipes.
Memorable Christmases.
Christmas when I was a child was always spent round at my grandma's house in Fernhead.
Christmas when we were children was a very exciting time for us. We'd put a pillow slip on the end of the bed when we went to bed, and miraculously Father Christmas would arrive in the night and fill it with lots of lovely goodies.
Well, memorable Christmases are probably when you're a child, and I had living at the beaches with Mum and Dad, Veronica and Wally and Lenny.
All my cousins and aunts and uncles used to congregate there during the day, and Gran used to cook a huge turkey with all the trimmings, and we'd all help ourselves and go and find a seat wherever we could and eat our lunch.
There was always a tangerine and a selection box, and usually things that we'd asked for, but I think maybe not always, because things were a bit tight, I think, at times.
And Christmas Day was always a lovely day. There was a nice, always had a nice lunch.
In the afternoon, we always used to go in the front room, all the kids, all my cousins, and have great fun in there. We had a really nice time. I loved my mum's family. They were always very close. They were my mum's best friends, really. And we all looked out for one another. My Christmases were very happy memories of those times.
There was always a real Christmas tree, which we used to put up and decorate. I can remember the decorations that went on it. There were little plastic deer and things that hung off it. And we used to have paper streamers to decorate the lounge. And I remember one year these were strung up to the light, and they actually caught fire with the heat from the lamp. So that was a bit of a panic, putting the fire out.
My most memorable Christmas present probably was Christmas morning. I got a Webley & Scott bolt action 410 shotgun when I was about 12 or 13, and that was one of my most memorable presents.
I had lots of cousins, more than I. In fact, I don't know all of them, but the closest one was David. He was nearest to me in age. That was Auntie Dora's son. And then Beryl, which was Auntie May and Uncle Jack's son. So we had nice Christmases.
There was always a turkey for Christmas dinner. Wally and Lenny, of course, lived with us, so we'd all sit down for Christmas dinner together, which was a real occasion. It was always very exciting and very traditional, and Dad always loved his Christmases and enjoyed carving the turkey. At the table, he always insisted it was carved at the table.
Another memorable time, if we go back in time for one day, would be probably when the children were all little and we used to go to Sunnyside Christmas morning and have a lovely lunch there with Mum and Dad, Veronica and Wally and Lenny, Mary Cross. That was a lovely time as well, very memorable time.
We used to have Christmas pudding, and there were sixpences put into the Christmas pudding, and there was always 1/2 crown, but we never got it. Daddy always got the 1/2 crown.
Happy memories. I remember the first year I stopped believing in Father Christmas. I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and I'd asked for a bike for Christmas. And I must have been fast asleep in bed, and I heard this almighty racket, and it was my dad carrying my bike up, and he dropped it. And I woke up and I saw my dad with this bike, and I realised Father Christmas wasn't who he said he was.
I think Christmases were just very traditional. I just remember lots of happy times. Mum loved it because she said it was the only day I ate a decent meal. I loved the turkey and all the trimmings. So yeah, Christmases were good.
We were married on the 7th of September 1968.
My honeymoon was very brief. I was working for Britannia Airways, and we got married in August, which was, of course, the height of the season, so I could only get 4 days off.
We got married at Padgate Church near Warrington.
So we just went up to the Lake District for a couple of nights.
And then we went to the Dingle Hotel in Lymm for our wedding reception. It's not there now, it's houses. And then after the reception, the people didn't have evening receptions in those days. we went in the by car, and our car wasn't working properly, so Wally and Lenny had kindly hired us a Ford Cortina. Went in the car to the Lake District and stayed at the Waterhead Hotel on Windermere.
So off we went. We stayed our first night at the Waterhead Hotel in Ambleside on the banks of Windermere. And I remember getting there and it was quite late, and we asked could we have a sandwich or something, and in those days there was no little cafes that stayed open till late. It was either very expensive restaurants and they said the kitchen was closed, they couldn't even make us a sandwich. So from having our wedding breakfast at about 3 o'clock, we didn't have anything to eat then till next morning for breakfast.
I remember being in Grasmere and for lunch, and David reciting Wordsworth's Daffodils, which really impressed me, and until I realised he was reading it off the dinner mat.
Dad and I went on honeymoon on the 7th of September 1968 to Scotland. We went to a place called Portsonacan near Oban.
And then the next morning we travelled up to Scotland to Lochawe, a little village on Lochawe called Portsonacan, and stayed at the Portsonacan Hotel.
It was absolutely beautiful, the place. It was the most lovely hotel right on on the banks of Lochawe.
We did, later on in the year, we went to one of the Greek islands for a week.
A Colonel and Mrs. Young owned the hotel, and I got this hotel out of a magazine that somebody left in the office when I worked at High Lee. And it was in the Good Food Guide. It was quite expensive for us, but we decided because it was a special occasion, we'd go.
It was run by Colonel Young and his wife, and he used to stand on the lawn at night when it was dinner time, playing his bagpipes to tell her that it was time to come down to dinner.
The following spring, we went to Sri Lanka and the Maldives, so I suppose that really was like a belated honeymoon, and that was a fantastic holiday, really nice. And that was the last one before I left Britannia.
So anyway, off we went up to Scotland and stayed at Portsonacan Hotel, and we had the main bedroom overlooking the loch, big bay window, all antique furniture. It was absolutely tremendous. And every night at 6 o'clock, the major used to come down on the lawn and play the bagpipes and tell you that was the warning that it was time for dinner. So we used to go down for dinner, and we were the youngest people there. I think we were only in our 20s, very naive, and I think everybody else at Colonel Young's establishment was at least in the 60s, which they were ancient to us, but they were all absolutely lovely. I think they guessed straight away that we were on our honeymoon, and they made quite a fuss of us.
It was full of genteel folk, retired army officers and their wives. We felt a bit out of it really, but it was very nice.
And what I do remember is we decided to take they had a boat, Mr. Young, at the hotel, and we decided to take this rowing boat. There's a little island out in the loch, and we rowed over to the island and back again.
And then we motored around there for a week. Went to the Isle of Mull, to a castle on the Isle of Mull one day, and had a really nice time.
When we came to pay our bill at the end of the week, we just had enough money to pay the bill, which I think was about £27 for the week for dinner, bed and breakfast. But they hadn't put the price of the boat on, which was a net about £3. And we didn't tell them because we hadn't got the money to pay for it. So perhaps that was a gift from them for our honeymoon. But happy memories, and we went back many years. We went back 2 years later when I was expecting you. And we couldn't afford to stay at the hotel, so we stayed at a little bed and breakfast across the way, and I was pregnant with you. So that was also a happy memory.
During the summer holidays when we were children, I probably spent a lot of time with Christine Newton and a lot of time on their farm, or she'd be at ours.
One of the very first holidays I remember having was when I was probably about 6, and we went to Blackpool, and we stayed in a bed and breakfast in Blackpool. Auntie Sylvia, my mum and dad, and my gran came.
Occasionally Guy'd let me join in with his gang and his games, but I think, as Mum said, I was always the little Indian until she made me a cowgirl outfit.
One I remember quite clearly is when some friends of Mum and Dad's were called Bevans, and they lived in South Wales, and we went down to stay with them, and they had 3 children, more or less our age. I must have been about 7.
We used to, at the weekends, we'd go cycling with Wally and Lenny. We had a tennis court on the back lawn, so Guy and I'd play tennis, and our friends would come and have a game of tennis. I don't think any of us were very good, but we could hit the ball back and forth across the net and have some fun.
We had a lovely time, and we went to, I remember going to Stanley Park, and they had all these big tents up, and all these famous people were in the tents, and you could go and have your photographs taken with them for something like 2 and 6pence or something.
There was Helen, Andy, the girl, and David, and we all went to Tenby for a few days, and I remember the weather was beautiful and we had a wonderful time.
When we were very little, we went to Llandudno. I can remember watching Punch and Judy on the seafront there, and I think probably the same families still have the Punch and Judy show there.
And I remember queuing up with Sylvia because she absolutely loved Dickie Valentine.
And then we used to go to Tenby with a family called the Bevans. They had 3 children, Helen, Andrea and David, who were a little bit older than me, but very nice, and we all got on very well together.
So we queued up to see Dickie Valentine at this tent, which took us about an hour. And then when we got to the tent, we were all taken in, and Dickie Valentine had gone for his lunch, and it was Alma Cogan. So Sylvia had a photograph taken with Alma Cogan. So I remember that quite well.
Later on, we would go down to Cornwall, and that usually entailed setting off about 4 o'clock in the morning, stopping somewhere en route to cook breakfast. Dad used to like to take the Primus stove and find a little spot to stop, and then he'd cook bacon and eggs, and we'd have a cup of tea, and then we'd carry on our way.
Playing on the beach, and they were a nice, lovely family. And I remember in the bedroom they still had the gas mantles. They didn't have electric lights. So that'd be about 1952.
We always stayed in guest houses. I can remember one in Polruan where they had the girl obviously had some mental disorder, and I was up sleeping in the little attic room, and she used to come banging on my door. She used to frighten me to death.
And I remember, I've got some photographs, and I remember I had a new watch on, and every photograph that my mother took of us, she used to say, "Show your watch." Show your watch. So we used to have to stand with our watches.
And then we entered the fancy dress in Polruan. I went as a scarecrow. I don't know if the guy entered or not, but I can remember going as a scarecrow. Didn't win. But we did win quite a lot. They had a sports day as well, and I think Guy and I won quite a lot of the prizes there. So that was good fun.
So that was the first holiday I ever really remember. And we used to go to Rill a lot, to a caravan in Rill. My mum's friend used to have a caravan there, and she used to let us have it. It was a big one, a 2-3 bedroom caravan.
We had holidays on Anglesey as well, I can remember, with Mum and Dad later on. Dad was usually very bad-tempered when we set off. We couldn't get everything onto the car or into the car, and we had a Ford Popular that he put the roof rack on and piled high with suitcases, and so the centre of gravity was somewhere up above our heads, I think. And great fun going round corners, and then when it rained, we used to sing in time to the windscreen wipers, and they seemed to go slower as we went faster. It was some sort of strange system, but yes, I think Dad was all right once we got there, but I was my memories of setting off were always him having a real sense of humour breakdown, shall we say.
I could always take a friend with me, so I used to take Susan Lawson from next door.
My first holiday without my parents, I think, was to Clacton-on-Sea with my friends Joy and Midge. My memories of that are that it was very hot and I came out in cold sores on my mouth. I had about half a dozen, I think. Incredibly painful and incredibly unattractive.
We didn't have a lot of money, so the holidays were few and far between, really. But what we did have, I have got nice memories of, so that was something.
I can remember having donuts. That was the first time I'd ever had donuts cooked hot and fresh from a machine. I thought they were great.
I can't really say what my favourite holiday is because I quite like any holiday, really, and it's like being on holiday all the time now we're retired.
My favourite type of holiday would be something adventurous, somewhere with beautiful scenery, new and interesting cultures.
One of my most memorable holidays was when I was 21. A friend and I, Jeff Adamson, and two other lads, went to the south of France for 6 weeks.
But I have to say, when we did retire, when your dad was 60, and we took a nice long holiday to New Zealand and Australia, spent 3.5 weeks touring round. That was really very special, and I loved every minute of it. And I thought New Zealand was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to.
I also love my walking holidays because they always take you to places that people don't normally get to.
Where we were wouldn't give us the time, that time off, so we both packed our jobs in, went to the south of France, motored down in this lad Rover.
We stayed on the Pacific Ocean at a place called Tutukaka in a lovely log cabin. It was absolutely so romantic and so beautiful.
I've met some very interesting people walking and have walked in very good company as well.
Camped the south of France at a place called Ramatuelle for 6 weeks. That was a very memorable holiday.
And then we did another nice big holiday for our 40th wedding anniversary, and we went to Canada. And we went to see cousin David Woolley in Vancouver, and we stayed with him a few days. And then we toured Canada. We went to the wine region, and then we went up into the Rockies and to Banff, and we did all the beautiful things. And we had 3 weeks holiday in Canada touring around, and that was spectacular.
When I was married to David, we used to go down to the south of France, and his friend John was a yacht captain on one of the great big beautiful yachts, and he did once arrange for us to watch the Monaco Grand Prix from the yacht. We were hauled on board very unceremoniously at the back by some crew members. I just stood in the dinghy, put my arms up, and two crew members hauled us up. We were on board on the condition that we didn't get anywhere near the boss and his guests. So we watched it from the bridge, which in fact we were a bit higher up and had a fabulous view.
Other holidays I enjoyed was skiing. That was great fun. And our long distance walks with the two boys and latterly with Kirsty.
But our recent holidays have been in the caravan for the last 15 years.
Latterly, I suppose one of my great memories wasn't actually a holiday, it was a charity trek in Peru, trekking in the Andes. We didn't actually do the Inca Trail until the last day. So we were walking in the mountains, we were camping on Inca terraces, we were going into schools, meeting school children. I remember walking through a valley that was just red with orchids. The stars at night, I've never seen anything like it. Just the skies were so clear, just seemed to be millions of stars.
Latterly, Mum and I enjoy going away in the caravan. Had lots of caravan holidays and toured all over Britain and really enjoyed it.
And we've had some fantastic holidays in the caravan.
And I can remember after the end of, we'd done the longest, the highest part, so we were coming down So we were in the camp where we were going to relax, and we hadn't had a shower for several days, and we were told we could wash in the river as long as we used biodegradable soap. So they put a rope across to stop us all disappearing downstream, and we washed in, taking my cosy, and we washed in this icy cold stream.
We've seen Great Britain like we never would have seen it if we hadn't have had it. We've been to every corner of the country.
I was trying to wash my hair, kept slipping, and Max, the tour leader, said, "Oh, for goodness sake, get over here." And he started washing my hair and throwing so much cold water over it. Everybody was in absolute fits. It was hilarious, absolutely freezing, but I was absolutely glowing when I got out.
One of our favourite places is Scotland. We absolutely adore Scotland. We love the Isle of Mull, the Isle of Skye, Arran. They're just all magnificent.
On the last day, we walked up to the Sun Gate and looked down on Machu Picchu. And we arrived in Machu Picchu at, would have been about 5 o'clock, I think. So most of the tourists had gone home. So we more or less had the place to ourselves. And a condor flew over, and Max, who had lived in Peru and worked in Peru for 20 years, said he'd never seen a condor over Machu Picchu before. So that was a very special moment.
But also, one of my favourite places is Pembrokeshire. I absolutely love the Pembrokeshire coast.
India I loved. We had, I think I liked southern India more than the north, maybe because that was a different experience. We stayed with a family for the first week in Kanjipuram, which was the silk capital, and then we joined a small group of 10 of us, and we went across from the east coast to the west coast.
So we've had some really nice holidays. I haven't really got a favourite, although I do love America. I've been to quite a few states in America with Linda, my friend, and your dad and I, and Kirsty and the children. And we've had some lovely holidays in America, and I do like the American people very much.
Because it was such a small group, we were able to just stop where we wanted to, and we got up early once and went bird watching, and just fabulous. And I loved the culture and found it fascinating.
So not really a favourite holiday, but if one stuck out more than any, it would be New Zealand.
New Zealand was wonderful, and that was quite an adventure for 2 pensioners, hiring a car and going off on our own with my friend Jill. That was a wonderful experience. Lots of lovely memories there, and lots of lovely walking holidays with Jill, doing our long distance walks in sections, and lots of wonderful experiences there. And Ireland last year was a very memorable holiday for me. It was wonderful scenery, but the best part was being with the family and sharing the experience with them, and sharing all the humour that was going on between the siblings.